they are to repair. And in verse 16, it says, and they answered Joshua, saying, all that thou commanded us to do, they said what? We will do. And wheresoever thou sendest us, it says what? We will go. Isn't that the response that each of us should have? Isn't that the response that each of us should have? After our time of preparation, it's about getting up now and going to do. All that thou commandest us, we will do, and wheresoever thou sendest us, we will go. In other words, I don't have to know. All I need to do is go. All I need to do is hear your command to me, and that's the direction I will go. It says in verse 17, according as we hearken unto Moses in all things, so will we hearken unto thee. Only the Lord thy God be with thee as he was with Moses. And again, brothers and sisters, it's important that we put our leaders before the Lord. It's important that we put our leaders before the Lord and pray for them. Because he says, we will do everything according as we hearken unto Moses in all things, so we will hearken unto you. Only the Lord thy God, he says, be with you as he was with Moses. So our prayer is that the leaders who are leading us, we have to put them before prayer, that God will be with them as he was with those who came before them. And it says in verse 18, whosoever he be that doth rebel against thy commandments, and will not hearken unto thy voice, in all that thou commandest him, he shall be put to death. Only, as again it comes, here it comes a fourth time. I said only 3 times before, didn't I? But it comes a fourth time. It comes, what does it say? Only be strong and of good courage. That is what the Lord requires of us. And you know, brothers and sisters, nobody's saying that their path would have been easy. Even before they had reached this stage, they had gone through all kinds of troubles. They had gone through even battles in order to reach this stage. And even we are told when they were to cross into the promised land, we are told that their battles had not ceased then. Because still there were nations, we are told, that they would come up against who they would have to overcome in order to enjoy the inheritance that was given to them. Remember when they crossed the Jordan, one of the first people that they came across was who? Remember the blowing of the trumpets? The Jericho. Remember? They were to, even when they crossed over into land, there were people who they would come across, who they would come against, who would wage war with them. But you know, one of the wonderful things about God is that many of the people, you know what stopped many of the people from warring with them? Is that word had got out of how God had led his people in the past. Word had got out of how they had slain this king, and they had slain that king, and they had slain that nation. So by the time they came to face other nations, the resistance wasn't there because they had learned about what God had done for his people in the past. And therefore they were more reluctant to war against God's people because of the success that they had against what were mighty nations. We are told that they slain 5 kings of Midian, the powerful of Sihon, the kings of the Amorites, of Og and Bashan. And we are told that this went before them. You know, they were mighty nations that they had conquered. It says in verse 9 of chapter 2, and it says, and he said unto the men, I know that the Lord hath given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all inhabitants of the land faint because of you. In other words, they're saying, we have heard about all the conquests that you have had over these great kings and nations. And anything that we had, you know, even thought to build up ourselves against you, it says, the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. In other words, they're fearful because of you. Brothers and sisters, when the Lord fights on our behalf, people will hear. When the Lord fights on our behalf, people will know. Because there'll be a testimony, not only a testimony that we will give, but it will go further afield. The Lord, when he says he will lead his people, he will lead his people. As I said to you before, the land was sure. Even before they had crossed over into the land they knew was theirs. They had the deeds to the land, even though, you know, I've not bought a property, but I have knowledge of buying a property. And when you go to purchase a property, one of the first things you do is you want to go and view that property, don't you? You want to go and see it. Or even if you're moving somewhere, you want to go and see that property before you go there, ideally, unless you're forced to go there for some reason. And you want to check it out, making sure everything is good. You want to, even press on some of the floorboards. They look a bit wonky. You probably get a surveyor to survey, make sure everything is in order. You want to, is the cracks in here or there. And ultimately, if everything is fine and dandy, you will go through the specific paperwork and your solicitors will do their jobs, and one day that deed will become, they'll have that in your hand, that deed to that property. That means that now is mine. As long as I keep up the payments and everything, or if I could, fortunate to pay it off in one lump sum, and that's mine. That property is mine. So a deed is something that you usually acquire after you've come to the acknowledgement and you've gone through the procedures, and that becomes mine. But with the Israelites, that deed they had even before they had seen the land. They had the deeds in their hands. Not because they had seen it, not because they had plucked fruits from the trees in Canaan, not because they had, tested the grass and see how spongy it is. No, not because of any of that, but because the God had said that's your land. Amen. God had given it to them even before they'd even possessed or seen it. God had promised it to them. And once God promises you something, brothers and sisters, if you're faithful in your quest, that is yours. So God says, the land is mine. And we are told that they had the deeds of it. They had a certificate. And through all their struggles and their pressures, it seemed insignificant to that which they were going to gain. It's the same with us, brothers and sisters. We have the deeds. God has given us deeds. God has given us deeds to a land which is yet to come. A land which we have not seen, a land which we have not tasted the fruits of, a land to which we have not stepped on the grass, a land to which we have not built a house there or even gone to see a house. But the Lord has promised us, He's given us the deeds. It's not deeds that are to come. The deeds is in your and I's hands right now, if we choose to accept the deed. And if we are faithful and we go forward and we move forward in the commission, one day, brothers and sisters, we will step over into that promised land. One day we will step over. And, I could only, imagine, the description as we go back in the book of Deuteronomy. The book of Deuteronomy. Numbers. Sorry, we didn't get that scripture.